A 64-year-old man is behind bars for setting fire to his special needs wife inside their home. At 7:39 p.m. on Tuesday the 24th of October, authorities responded to a call about a patient being treated for severe burns at Phoebe Putney Hospital in Albany, Georgia. When officers arrived, they learnt that emergency medical personnel had picked up 67-year-old Amanda Jenkins earlier that day from her residence in the 400 block of Bobbitt Drive. Medics said Amanda was unresponsive and suffered burns to about 25% of her lower body. Police then responded to the victim's home and made contact with her husband, 64-year-old Henry Hardwick. When questioned by police, he said he was rubbing alcohol on his wife because she was in a great deal of pain from a condition of multiple sclerosis 2 days earlier. While applying the alcohol to his wife's skin, he lit a cigarette too close to her, causing her body to catch fire. Instead of seeking immediate help, Henry told police he panicked and was too scared to call for help. He said he waited 2 days before calling Amanda's daughter, who came to their home and saw that her mother was in dire need of medical attention and called 911. Due to the severity of her injuries, she was taken to the Augusta Burn Unit for specialised treatment. On Wednesday the 25th of October, Henry was arrested and charged with aggravated assault and is held at the Doherty County Jail without bond. Authorities said that further charges are expected. This isn't Henry's first run-in with the law. In April, he was charged with simple battery, domestic trespass, and obstructing or hindering persons making an emergency telephone call. He was released on bond on the 12th of April on the condition that he stay away from Amanda Jenkins, who was a victim. On the 5th of May, he pleaded guilty to all 3 charges. However, it's unclear what penalties he faced. The investigation into the matter continues. On Thursday the 26th of October 2023, 23-year-old Daniel Gunnerson was sentenced to 27 years to life in prison for killing his 21-year-old girlfriend Catherine Pham with an ice axe. On the 30th of August 2023, he was found guilty of first-degree murder with the use of a deadly weapon and abuse of a corpse. At 10:58 a.m. on the 18th of May 2021, authorities responded to the 900 block of Skylark Avenue in Ridgecrest, California, and found Catherine with trauma to her body. Officials pronounced her dead at the scene, and Daniel was consequently arrested. Authorities said that Daniel and Catherine were in a relationship for about a month prior to the killing. On the 17th of May 2021, Daniel displayed animosity towards Catherine and expressed what his friends believed to be suicidal behaviour. Daniel reversed his car into a wall outside Catherine's apartment building multiple times because he was angry she did not reciprocate his feelings. One friend recalled an incident where Daniel drove erratically at high speeds while Catherine was on the phone not paying attention to him. On the 18th of May 2021, he went to his stepfather's house and spoke about his failing relationship with Catherine. He called Catherine, expressing remorse and apologised for his behaviour. He then asked to meet up with her. He then picked her up at her apartment and drove back to his stepfather's home. When they got to the house, they both went into an RV garage. Painters working at the stepfather's house heard Catherine screaming, followed by sounds of things being moved around. The painters went into the garage about an hour later and discovered Daniel with blood all over his body and Catherine deceased on the mattress topper. She was partially naked, with her chest and midsection exposed. The painters went to the stepfather for help and called 911. Investigators determined that Daniel put on gloves, then attacked Catherine with a 24-inch axe 10 times, hitting her in the head, neck and face. After she died, Daniel repositioned Catherine's body, removed some of her clothes and proceeded to make sexual contact with her remains. Her father Tom Pham said at the time, "Our only consolation would be for justice to be served so Katie could rest easy, and Ridgecrest as a community could rest easy with her." On Friday the 27th of October 2023, 43-year-old Candace Jones was found guilty of murder in her role of killing 20-year-old Michael Armendariz in 2018. She was also found guilty of armed robbery with a firearm. Candace is one of 3 suspects arrested and charged in connection to the murder. On the 29th of September 2023, her son and co-defendant 27-year-old Ernest Collins was convicted of murder and armed robbery with a firearm. The 3rd suspect, Ernest's girlfriend 26-year-old Cassandra Green, entered an agreed guilty plea to 1 count of armed robbery with a firearm on the 19th of August 2022 in exchange for her cooperation and testimony. On the 18th of January 2018, authorities responded to an apartment along the 100 block of South Whispering Hills Drive in Naperville, Illinois after Michael was reported missing. He was last seen 4 days earlier at around 9:30 p.m. Authorities discovered that Candace had plotted a scheme with the 2 other suspects to rob the victim with a gun after she saw social media posts in which Michael posed with cash and drugs. At 9:11 PM on the 14th of January 2018, Michael received a Snapchat message from Cassandra. The two had been friends for 10 years. She told him that she was waiting outside and they were going to drive to Walmart to steal a bottle of alcohol. After receiving that message, Michael left his apartment and got into the front passenger side of a black 1999 Ford Explorer SUV driven by Cassandra. Several minutes later, Ernest came out of hiding under a blanket in the back of the vehicle and fatally shot Michael twice in the back of the head. They covered Michael's body with a blanket and drove to Candace's home in the 6800 block of South Artesian Avenue in the Market Park neighborhood of Chicago. They took Michael's body out of the car, went through his pockets taking his wallet, vape pen, keys and phone. They then stuffed Michael's body into a blue recycling bin in Candace's garage. They then used Michael's keys to burglarise his apartment the next day. The recycling bin was later moved to a garage of a vacant house next door, where Michael's decomposing body was later found. Within weeks of the murder, all three suspects were taken into custody after detectives found Michael's blood inside the Ford Explorer, and remnants of Michael's belongings were discovered in a fire pit in Candace's backyard. Candace is due in court on the 18th of December and faces up to 75 years in prison. Ernest will return to court on the 29th of November and faces up to life in prison. Cassandra is due in court on the 13th of November and will be sentenced to 21 years behind bars as part of a plea deal. Authorities are searching for those responsible for fatally shooting 46-year-old Legis Minder Sr. At 11:16 PM on Thursday the 26th of October, authorities responded to Chubby's convenience store at 154 West St. Joseph Street in eastern Pennsylvania on reports of a shooting. When officers arrived, they found Legis in the vehicle of the store's parking lot suffering from a gunshot wound. Legis was transported to a local hospital, but was pronounced dead at 7:45 AM the next morning. Police said they're looking for a silver Chevrolet Traverse with tinted windows, which fled north on St. John's Street after the shooting. Authorities said that they suspect the Chevy SUV was occupied by more than one person. Police said they believe the victim was known to whoever was responsible for the killing. They also said they believe the victim was the intended target, and it was a targeted attack. The motive of the attack is unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. A 38-year-old man who's serving prison time for the sexual exploitation of a young girl faces 15 years to life in prison for killing his 11-year-old son in 2020. On Thursday the 26th of October 2023, Jordan Piper pleaded guilty to second-degree murder of Roman Lopez. On the 11th of January 2020, Roman's stepmother Lindsay Piper reported the boy missing from the home at 2892 Coloma Street in Placerville, California, where he and his family had lived for a little over 2 months. Roman lived with his father and stepmother, along with 7 other children aged 1 to 17 years old. Within hours of Roman being reported missing, Placerville police found his remains inside a storage bin in the basement of his home. An autopsy report shows that the boy had no obvious trauma, but he was severely malnourished and dehydrated at the time of his death. Investigators retrieved medical records for Roman and learned he weighed 61 pounds when he was 9 years old. The El Dorado County Sheriff's Office coroner determined that Roman had not been to a doctor in 2 years since that appointment. Authorities said that Roman suffered physical abuse for years and had been restrained by being tied and zip-tied to his bed at night. Investigators noted that the family often moved, which added to the complexity of the case. El Dorado County District Attorney Vern Pearson said in a statement, "It's absolutely horrific and incomprehensible the way Roman was tortured, abused and murdered by his own father." He said that although I recognise it would never seem like enough prison time for any parent to kill their child, today I believe we secured some measure of justice for Roman Lopez. Jordan and Lindsay were initially charged with multiple criminal counts, including child abuse, poisoning and torture. On the 8th of July 2022, Lindsay was convicted of second-degree murder and was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. Jordan's sentencing is scheduled for Tuesday the 21st of November. He is currently serving a 15-year federal prison term for the sexual exploitation of a child unrelated to Roman's death. A 22-year-old man is behind bars for fatally shooting a high school student. At 2:45 PM on Monday the 23rd of October, authorities responded to a gravel parking lot near Moore Square in Raleigh, North Carolina on reports of a shooting. When officers arrived at the scene, they found 15-year-old Shamar Leverett in a critical condition suffering from a gunshot wound to his chest and he was rushed to a local hospital. Police arrested Steve Mark Stanley on initial charges of assault with a dangerous weapon with intent to kill, inflicting serious injury and possession of a firearm by a felon. On Sunday the 29th of October, Shamar passed away in hospital after one of his lungs was removed and the other lung stopped working. Shamar's mother, Jasmine Leverett, said her son was a student at Leesville High School. She said that Shamar and Stanley did not know each other and was shot after Stanley confronted his 12-year-old friend and Shamar stepped in to defend him. It's unclear what the confrontation was about. Shamar's father, Tracy Montague, said that Shamar had a close call recently after being shot 2 weeks ago at an apartment complex. Tracy said he got his son a bulletproof vest for his protection. However, Shamar left the vest at home on the day he was shot. Stephen's charges have since been upgraded to include a count of murder. He's held at the Wake County Jail without bond. Stephen has an extensive criminal history. He was released from prison in August after serving time for felony breaking and entering. He had several prior convictions for robbery, larceny and drug possession. The investigation into the matter continues. 44-year-old Michael Shane Hellstead and 43-year-old Karen Tysinger Hellstead are behind bars after their 19-year-old son's body was found behind a home they recently moved out of. At 11:37 a.m. on Sunday the 29th of October, authorities responded to a home at 296 Bradford Drive in Headland, Alabama on reports of finding a dead body on the property. When officers arrived on scene, they located a severely decomposed body inside an overturned non-working freezer that had been left in the backyard of the home. Officers said initially because of the condition of the body, they could not immediately determine its sex. Authorities said the remains had been identified as 19-year-old Logan Michael Hellstead. Authorities said he's been dead since late July or early August. Logan suffered ongoing medical issues, including spina bifida, which occurs when the spine does not form correctly and can result in paralysis or the inability to walk. Logan's parents Michael and Karen had been renting the house, but moved away without paying rent sometime after August of 2023. The former landlord of the home then sold the house to the current owners, who discovered the body in the freezer while cleaning the newly acquired property. The new owners said they came across the freezer in the backyard, and it was too heavy to load up onto the trailer to move, so they were going to clean it out before hauling it away. When they opened it up and began moving things around, they saw a hand and immediately called 911. After moving out of the house, Michael and Karen relocated to another residence in Jack, Alabama, about 50 miles west of the home. Several hours after the body was discovered, they were taken into custody and transported back to Henry County for questioning. Michael told investigators that Logan had bowel movements in the house, so he left the room to get cleaning supplies. When he returned, he claimed his son was dead. He reportedly wrapped his son's body in blankets, a shower curtain, and a plastic bag and placed his remains into a cardboard box before putting him in the freezer. He said he moved the rest of his family, which included his twin children, out of the house following Logan's death. Michael said that he later called Headland police to alert them that his son's remains were in the freezer weeks before it was discovered, but officers failed to find them in a previous search of the property and left. Henry County Sheriff Eric Blankenship said that Michael claimed he suffered a manic episode and didn't remember how his son's body got inside the non-working freezer. There was just a lot of discrepancies in the stories and the timelines and so forth, which kind of threw up some red flags with us that there may be, something else behind this or something that both parties are not being truthful about. Michael and Karen were arrested and charged with abuse of a corpse and were initially held without bond at the Henry County Jail. During a court hearing on Monday the 30th of October, Michael testified that his wife had nothing to do with disposing of their son's body. A judge set their bond at $175,000 each. Authorities said an autopsy is pending, which may lead to upgraded charges against the couple, including murder. The couple's twin children are reportedly in the care of Alabama Department of Human Resources. The investigation into the matter continues. 33-year-old Michael Jones is behind bars after accidentally shooting his 4-year-old son at their home. At 10:12 a.m. on the 31st of October, authorities responded to an apartment at 25 Queen Street in Cranston, Rhode Island, on report of a child that had been shot. The caller indicated that the father was responsible for the shooting. When first responders arrived, they found Michael holding his son, who had a gunshot wound to his head. The boy was transported to Hasbro Children's Hospital in Providence, where he underwent emergency surgery and remains in a critical condition. Michael told investigators that he was in the second-floor bedroom of the residence when he was handling a loaded handgun, which accidentally discharged, causing a bullet to travel through a wall and hit his son in an adjacent room. The child's grandfather, who lives on the first floor, called 911 for medical help. During a search of the premises, investigators recovered a handgun believed to be used in the shooting. Michael's charged with assault, possession of a firearm by a prohibited person, and firing a weapon in a compact area. An additional charge of violating a suspended sentence is expected from the State Attorney General's office. Cranston police said that Michael was convicted of felony assault and sentenced to a 2-year suspended sentence and probation on the 1st of June 2022. As a convicted felon, he was barred from possessing a firearm. Police don't know yet how he came into possession of the weapon. The investigation into the matter continues. 42-year-old Tyron Lambert is behind bars for fatally shooting his wife. At just after midnight on Saturday the 28th of October, a visitor at 162 Topaz Drive in Dallas, Georgia called 911 after Tyron came to the house of his estranged wife, 37-year-old Jasmine Lambert. He forced his way inside through the back door and threatened multiple people with a gun. When he learned that someone had contacted authorities, he fled the scene before deputies arrived. Paulding County deputies filed a report and began the process of obtaining warrants for his arrest. They also placed the residents on zone patrol and put out a be on the lookout alert for Tyron and his vehicle. At 7:12 a.m, authorities received another call from the home indicating that Tyron had returned to the premises and forced his way through the back door again. Deputies responded to the scene and heard a gunshot. As deputies made their way to the back of the home, they stopped Tyron at the side gate and apprehended him after a brief struggle. Deputies then entered the house and found Jasmine unresponsive with a gunshot wound to her head. She was transported to Wellstar Paulding Hospital, where she was pronounced dead. Tyron is charged with murder, malice murder, burglary, criminal damage to property, 2 counts of cruelty to children, criminal trespass, possession of a firearm during a commission of a crime, 2 counts of aggravated assault and obstruction. He's held at the Paulding County Jail without bond. Jasmine was a mother of 2 and a 3rd grade teacher at Still Elementary School in Cobb County. Authorities said there was a temporary protective order filed against Tyron last year, but it expired. The investigation into the matter continues. 29-year-old Yulia Storazak has been arrested after being caught on camera physically abusing her 3-year-old son. The incident occurred at just after 9 p.m. on Monday the 30th of October at a condominium in the 17,000 block of North Bay Road in Sunny Isles Beach, Florida. Footage of the assault on the child was captured by a neighbour's doorbell camera, which was handed in to police the next day. It showed Yulia lifting a 3-year-old son with both hands and slamming him to the ground before kicking the child at least twice. She then grabs him by the face and pushes him to the ground as he attempts to get up before repeatedly kicking the boy while exiting camera view. 40 minutes later, she was seen pushing the child in the chest, causing him to fall back and hit the floor. An investigator found the child had redness on his cheek and forehead and bruises on his right forearm and left knee. The child also had scratches on his stomach and back, and he told investigators that his mother had scratched him. Yulia told police that she pushed her son because he insisted on going to the playground, and he was being difficult and uncooperative, and that he wasn't listening when she told him no. She was arrested that night and booked into the Turner Guilford Night Correctional Centre. Yulia appeared in bond court on Wednesday morning on the 1st of November. Speaking through a Russian interpreter, Yulia told Judge Mindy Glazer that she and her son came to Florida about a year ago to escape the war in Ukraine, and that she works as a flight attendant. She said she loves and adores her child, and apologised for her actions. Yulia said, "I'm very sorry. I'm a single mother." She said that this was the only incident where she let her temper get the better of her, and that she never abused her child before. Yulia was charged with 2 counts of abuse, and was ordered to have no contact with her son, and a bond was set at $5,000. The child is in the care of Department of Children and Families. Later that night, Yulia bonded out of jail. When she walked out, she told reporters she loved her son, and apologised for abusing her son. "I'm so sorry. I won't do this anymore," she said. 21-year-old Nathan Lansey is accused of biting off a man's fingertip during a struggle at a wedding after inappropriately touching a guest. On Friday the 27th of October, authorities responded to the club at Lac La Belle in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin after getting a call from someone who said a man had his fingertip bitten off. When officers arrived at the wedding venue, they located Nathan sitting on a couch with blood on his sleeve, which did not appear to be from him. There was also blood on the floor and on the table in the ballroom, as well as attendees who appeared to have been disturbed by the incident, including some who were crying. A witness told police the incident started after Nathan touched a female's buttocks, causing others to become upset. Nathan began to yell and became very agitated, at which point people tried to isolate him in another room. The bride and groom attempted to calm Nathan, but he soon became disruptive again. Another witness walked into the room and told Nathan to leave, but he became very aggressive and continued to be loud. Nathan then lunged at him and pinned him up against the wall. 3 people restrained Nathan on the ground, but during the altercation Nathan bit the tip of someone's finger off. An officer at the scene called the injury significant, stating that about half an inch of the finger had been bitten off, exposing the bone. The victim told authorities that Nathan was running his mouth, so grabbed Nathan around the head area. Nathan then turned toward the victim and they toppled down onto the floor. At some point the victim's hand got into Nathan's mouth, so he bit down on the finger. Officials located the victim's fingertip and put it into a cup of ice until he could be taken to hospital. The victim said he needed 18 or 19 stitches while the surgeon attempted to reattach the tip of his finger. It's unclear if the surgery was successful. Authorities said that Nathan was very intoxicated at the wedding and had a blood alcohol content level of 0.210, whereas the victim was completely sober. Nathan's been charged with felony aggravated battery and disorderly conduct. His bond was set at $25,000. The investigation into the matter continues. 19-year-old Dallis Dallas is behind bars for abusing and murdering his infant son. At around 12:25 p.m. on Friday the 27th of October, authorities responded to a home along Richland Road in Stafford County, Virginia on reports of a medical emergency. When deputies arrived on scene, they found an unresponsive 3-month-old child and attempted life-saving measures until paramedics arrived. The boy was transported to a local hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. The medical examiner conducted an autopsy and ruled the child's death as a homicide stemming from inflicted physical injuries. On Saturday the 28th of October, Dallas was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and felony child abuse. He is held at the Rappahannock Regional Jail without bond. Dallas worked for Stafford County Fire and Rescue. In a statement, Stafford County Fire and Rescue said the allegations do not reflect the values of the department, and Dallas has been placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. Dallas's attorney Thaddeus Furlong said that the baby's death was accidental, adding that his client had cooperated with law enforcement. He said that Dallas called 911 and had no intention of hurting anyone. He's 19 years old, and this is his first and only child, he said. The investigation into the matter continues. A couple have been arrested after beating, burning and starving their daughter. At around 8 p.m. on the 16th of September, a woman leaving the bar at Trails Village in the Village Center Circle in Las Vegas, Nevada, spotted a 13-year-old girl wandering across the parking lot outside of Albertson's grocery store. She noticed the teen appeared malnourished and had visible burn marks, cuts and scars on her. The woman then called police. When officers arrived, they spoke with the victim and noticed she had several burns on her palms and arms, and multiple cuts on her hands and face. She said that she ran away from home because she was getting tired of being punished. She said her biological father passed away years ago, and since then she's been punished on a regular basis for doing the wrong thing or staring. She said her mother, 42-year-old Casey Lilly, and stepfather, 43-year-old Edward Lilly, would slap her in the face for staring. She said she had been homeschooled since she was 8 years old and does not have any friends. She also said that she does not like to be at home because it makes her sad. Child Protective Services was called to the scene, and Casey also showed up and told police that her daughter ran away a few hours earlier in the evening. Casey told police her daughter likes to steal food and eat out of the trash can, even though she's provided food at home, but she could not explain why her daughter is so thin. Casey admitted to beating the girl she caught her staring at Edward. When asked why she would react this way, she said it was because her daughter admitted to having a crush on her husband. When the detective asked her how that made her feel, she said it bothered her to have another woman staring at her man. It made her want to attack. Casey said she would say, "Hey, that's mine, you know. Back the fuck off, that's mine." Casey also claimed that her daughter would listen to her and Edward when they had sex. Edward told detectives that he never physically disciplined the girl, whom he described as defiant and never doing what she was told. While interviewed at the Southern Nevada Child Advocacy Center, the girl said she did not want to go back home with her mother and stepfather due to being smacked and punished all the time. When asked about being punished, she said that she does not like having a hand on the stove. When asked why she thought her mother may have burnt her, she said she was mad at her for staring at Edward. She also explained how her mother would hold her hand under hot water as punishment. The victim also told police that her stepfather would beat her as well, though he wouldn't hit her as hard as her mother. A medical exam conducted on the girl showed that she weighed 78 pounds and had finger marks on both arms, a bruise on the back of her right arm, loop marks on her back, buttocks and back of both legs, burns on both hands, cuts inside her mouth on both sides, and a bruise on her left shin. On Wednesday the 25th of October, Casey and Edward were arrested and charged with 3 counts of abuse and 2 counts of abuse resulting in substantial bodily harm. The investigation into the matter continues. 35-year-old Veronica Elliot was arrested after leaving her 7-year-old daughter alone in a car for hours while she got drunk at a local bar. At 2:58 a.m. on Sunday the 29th of October, authorities responded to the Perfect Spot restaurant and bar, located at 1600 Flight Line Boulevard in Delante, Florida, in regards to a 7-year-old girl who walked into the bar looking for a mother when patrons quickly phoned police. During the investigation, police learned that the child was left alone in an unlocked car for hours, which was turned off in a dark parking lot with no lights, near other cars where people were sleeping and drinking alcohol. An officer stayed with the child while the officers looked for Veronica. At around 6:30 a.m, as officers continued searching for Veronica, she walked up to one of them, asking what time it was. She was drunk, covered in dirt and swaying back and forth with a slurred speech and was missing her shoes. She was surprised at the time and told officers she was only meant to be away for 10 minutes. Veronica told police that she was going to the bar to meet a man and woke up hours later in a stranger's car on the other side of the parking lot. She told officers that she didn't feel like she'd been drugged or sexually abused. Veronica was arrested and charged with child neglect without great bodily harm and was booked into the Volusia County Branch Jail. The Department of Children and Families took custody of the child. Veronica was later released on a $2,500 bond. The investigation into the matter continues. 52-year-old Andrea CER is behind bars for threatening a former roommate as she was moving out of her home. On Monday the 30th of October, authorities responded to a residence in the 14,000 block of Northwest 21st Court in Citra, Florida on reports of a disturbance. When deputies arrived on scene, they learnt that Andrea had a new roommate who had been living in the house for about 4 or 5 days, but kicked her out because the arrangement wasn't working out. The woman asked her friend to come and help her, but Andrea believed they weren't packing up fast enough. Andrea became more and more agitated as she was trying to make them pack faster. That's when she armed herself with an axe. "I'm gonna fuck you up," Andrea told the woman and her friend, before swinging the axe into the wall a few times. Andrea told deputies that the woman was not packing fast enough and told them to chop and hurry up. She also said she thought they could pack up quicker and they needed to work harder. Andrea, who has 2 prior charges for battery, said she got the axe for protection and did not verbally threat or wield the weapon. Andrea was arrested and charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of battery. She was transported to the Marin County Jail, where she remains on a $7,000 bond. The investigation into the matter continues. Laurie Wilds is behind bars for assaulting a man during an argument about rum. On Wednesday the 1st of November, authorities responded to a residence in Marin County, Florida on reports of an attack. When deputies arrived at the scene, they observed a small scrape with fresh blood coming out of the victim's head. The victim told deputies that he was in the garage when Laurie came in and began arguing about missing rum in the home. The man said that he doesn't drink rum, and that's when Laurie went into a rage and started knocking things over. She then grabbed the man around the neck and started punching him. The man was able to get away, but Laurie went after him and hit him in the head with a hammer. The man didn't know what he was hit with at first, but then realised it was the blunt side of the hammer. Deputies then located a hammer with a black and blue handle. When deputies caught up with Laurie, they detected a strong odour of alcohol in her breath. She told deputies that the argument with the victim was only verbal, but then admitted to throwing an alcohol bottle at him and throwing his laptop on the floor. Laurie was arrested and charged with felony aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and is held at the Marin County Jail on a $500 bond. Roommates 35-year-old Cole Bressett and 51-year-old Chris Relation are behind bars after 42-year-old Jeffrey Karen was fatally shot and his body was dumped. Authorities said that Cole and Jeffrey got into a dispute involving drugs on the 24th or the 25th of October. Chris allegedly helped Cole after the killing and did not contact police about it. At around 4:30 p.m. on Friday the 27th of October, hunters contacted authorities after discovering a dead man's body in a remote area about a quarter of a mile off Gore Road in Plainfield, Vermont. He was found lying face down in a clearing, and there were burn marks and charring on and around the body. State troopers arrived at the scene and determined that the male died under suspicious circumstances. Authorities said there were multiple game cameras set up on the property, and the cameras showed a vehicle on the property early in the morning on the 25th of October. The vehicle was seen driving near the area where the body was found, and was seen leaving about 30 minutes later. Detective Sergeant Isaac Miriam of the Vermont State Police said that one of the photographs showed a fire in the area where the body was found. He said other members of law enforcement were showing photos from the scene and reported that the body may have been that of 42-year-old Jeffrey Caron due to his prior interactions with police, including a recent search warrant in Bar, Vermont, where drugs were found. The medical examiner conducted an autopsy 2 days later and identified the victim as Jeffrey Caron, who died from a gunshot wound to his chest, and his death was ruled a homicide. Sergeant Merriam said that police spoke with Joni Bressett, Jeffrey's co-defendant, who's facing drug charges following the search warrant that was executed in Bar. Police said Joni had been selling drugs out of her apartment in North Bar Manor with Jeffrey's assistance. Joni said that Jeffrey and Chris appeared at her apartment on the 24th of October. She said she overheard the pair talking about robbing Cole of his drugs and money. Joni said that Chris and Cole lived together a few miles away in Berlin Mobile Home Park. Authorities said that surveillance footage showed Jeffrey and Chris arriving and then leaving in Joni's apartment on the 24th of October. The video showed the pair leaving in Joni's Nissan Rogue SUV, and Chris is then seen returning to the apartment alone in Joni's vehicle the next day. Investigators said that Joni's Nissan appeared to match the vehicle seen in the game camera footage in Plainfield. On the 27th of October, police located and seized Joni's vehicle and noted it had a significant amount of dried mud inside the wheel wells. Joni told authorities that several people had access to her vehicle since the 25th of October. Joni said she had access to Jeffrey's Facebook account and showed investigators messages between Jeffrey and Chris about drug transactions. While conducting a search of Joni's vehicle, blood was found on the rear passenger floorboard. On late Monday night on the 30th of October, police executed a search warrant at Chris and Cole's mobile home in Berlin. The pair were home at the time and were taken into custody after initially refusing commands of police. During an interview, Chris said he let Cole stay at his home and Cole paid him in crack cocaine, but he grew tired of the arrangement. Chris said that he no longer wanted Cole to live with him, but he and Jeffrey devised a plan to remove Cole from the home, taking his drugs and money in the process. Chris said that he lured Cole out of his home under the guise of a trip to Walmart, while Jeffrey snuck inside armed with a metal pipe awaiting their return. When Chris and Cole returned back at the mobile home, Jeffrey confronted Cole, and during the altercation, Cole shot Jeffrey in the chest. Chris said he watched Jeffrey die, and Cole pointed the gun at him, telling him to keep his mouth shut. Chris told detectives that Cole then used Joni's vehicle to move Jeffrey's body, and Chris initially denied helping Cole move the body, but he later admitted to helping move Jeffrey's body to an area near the door. Chris said that Cole was alone when he drove with Jeffrey's body, and later returned at about 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, telling Chris that the matter had been taken care of, and not to ask any questions. Chris admitted he sent Jeffrey a message on Facebook asking about his whereabouts, even though he knew Jeffrey was dead. While interviewed with detectives, Cole admitted to using cocaine and had been living with Chris. He never said he met Jeffrey, nor had he heard of him, and denied causing Jeffrey any harm, nor disposing of his body. Cole was charged with second-degree murder, and Chris was charged for accessory after the fact to second-degree murder, and remain held at the Northwestern State Correctional Facility without bond. Police said that Cole was wanted on pending arrest warrants for separate unrelated charges, including a felony count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer. The investigation into the matter continues. Police are searching for a man who's suspected of killing a female relative and then taking a severed head with him. At around 3:40 p.m. on Thursday the 2nd of November, authorities responded to a home at 2528 Pomo Trail in Santa Rosa, California on reports of a possible homicide. When officers arrived, they found a deceased woman inside. She'd been decapitated, but they were unable to locate her head. Upon further investigation, police identified 24-year-old Luis Gustavo Roy Lopez of Santa Rosa as a suspect. It's believed that Luis took the victim's head with him after leaving a residence, and that he may still be in possession of it. Police have not released the victim's name or age or relationship to the suspect, but neighbours said the victim was Lewis's grandmother. Lewis is described by police as a Hispanic male, being 5 foot 6 inches tall and about 150 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a black hooded sweatshirt or jacket, black pants and white shoes. He has the number 420 and a marijuana leaf tattoo on the left side of his head. Police believe he walked south on Iroquois Street after leaving the home. Police don't know where he intends to go next or if he has a vehicle. He has relatives in the San Joaquin Valley, but police don't know if he intends to go in that direction. He was recently released from state prison and placed on post-release community supervision. He's been in prison for assault with a deadly weapon and weapon possession charges, unrelated to the victim in this case. The investigation into the matter continues. 37-year-old Denise Law fatally beat an elderly woman during a dispute about the suspect's boyfriend. At around 2:40 p.m. on Thursday, the 2nd of November, authorities responded to a property at 3532 Riverway Drive in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on reports of an assault. When officers arrived, they found an unresponsive elderly woman outside on the ground with multiple severe injuries to her head and face. Medics transported her to a local hospital, where she was pronounced dead. The victim was identified as 66-year-old Melissa Reed. Authorities said that Denise confronted Melissa inside the home because Denise believed Melissa wanted a relationship with her boyfriend. They argued and the dispute continued outside, where Denise hit Melissa with a metal walker. A witness informed police that Melissa fell to the ground, and Denise continued striking her until bystanders intervened. Denise also tossed Melissa's cell phone into a storm drain, which was later retrieved by firefighters. Police arrested Denise and charged her with first-degree murder, and she's held at the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison. It's unclear how the suspect and the victim knew each other. The investigation into the matter continues. A 75-year-old former teacher's aide of a private religious school in Tomah, Wisconsin, will spend the next decade behind bars for forcibly and repeatedly sexually abusing a teenage boy. On Friday, the 27th of October 2023, Ann Nelson Kosh was sentenced to 10 years in prison, with 15 years of supervised release for the assaults which occurred in 2016. On the 31st of July 2023, Ann was convicted to 25 separate counts related to abuse. The charges included 12 counts of sexual assault of a child in the second degree, 4 counts of child enticement sexual conduct, 8 counts of exposing intimate parts to a child, and 1 count of intimidating a victim. The district attorney's office argued for 100 years in prison. In 2016, Ann repeatedly forced the teen victim to engage in oral sex and sodomy in the basement of Tomah Baptist Academy where she worked. In April of 2022, Ann was charged after a victim came forward to law enforcement and described the abuse he suffered. Judge Richard Radcliffe said Ann used a position of power over the victim to meet her own needs, recognising Ann was an authority figure trusted by the victim. Assistant District Attorney Sarah Skulls praised the victim for coming forward and reporting the abuse to law enforcement, and described him as an incredibly brave young man. She added that a sexual predator has been held accountable for her heinous actions, and will not be a threat to our community for the next 10 years. A 34-year-old man is behind bars for fatally stabbing his elderly parents. At around 11 a.m. on Thursday, the 2nd of November, authorities responded to a residence along Lincoln Avenue in Barnegat, New Jersey on reports of a disturbance. As officers approached the residence, they noticed a man walking away. Upon their arrival, they found bloodstains on the front door and blood in various areas throughout the home. As officers entered the bedroom, they discovered the bodies of 2 deceased victims with stab wounds to their chests and observed a knife nearby. The victims were later identified as 71-year-old Eugene Mulgrew and 69-year-old Cheryl Mulgrew. During the investigation, authorities identified the couple's son Michael Mulgrew, who lived with his parents, as a suspect. Police spotted him walking about a mile away in the area of West Bay Boulevard and Gunning River Road, and he was taken into custody. He's charged with murder, criminal possession of a weapon for unlawful purpose, and unlawful possession of a weapon. He's held at the Ocean County Jail without bond. The motive of the attack is unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. 22-year-old Chelsea Nicole Lamin is behind bars for fatally shooting 56-year-old Terrence Heath Fawkes. At 12:31 a.m. on Monday the 30th of October, authorities responded to the 700 block of 3rd Avenue Southeast in Dakota, Alabama on reports of a shooting. A nearby neighbor who lives along 4th Avenue Southeast made a 911 call after hearing a single gunshot and a woman crying in the backyard of a home across the alley. When first responders arrived, they found Chelsea crying over the body of Terrence in the backyard. A 9mm handgun was found between the man's legs and a 12-gauge shotgun beside his torso on the ground. A 9mm casing was also found near his body and a single gunshot entrance wound behind his right ear, and he was bleeding profusely with no signs of life. Medics transported Terrence to the Decatur Morgan Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The Morgan County coroner collected small clear bags of cocaine and marijuana from Terrence's clothing. During an interview with Chelsea, she said that she and Terrence used drugs that made them paranoid. She continued by stating that Terrence constantly believes people were trespassing his property, and she and Terrence would frequently discharge firearms into the air from the backyard to scare off any would-be trespassers. Chelsea said that she carried the handgun, and that Terrence carried the shotgun into the backyard because he thought someone was trespassing. She admitted to shooting the handgun into the air a few feet from Terrence, while he shot the shotgun at the same time. She claimed that Terrence fell to the ground immediately after, and was adamant that she did not shoot him. Chelsea was arrested and charged with manslaughter, and she's held at the Morgan County Jail on a $100,000 bond. Chelsea has previously been arrested on drug-related charges. Her most recent charge was trafficking meth in Lawrence County in April of 2022, when Chelsea stuffed 69 grams of meth inside a bra. Terrence also has a criminal history. On the 27th of December 2020, a Decatur resident filed a report with the Decatur Police Department for a home repair fraud. Terrence was arrested after receiving funds from a resident in Morgan County to repair a plumbing issue while operating under the guise of a licensed and insured plumber. Authorities said he did not have an active business license and was not a licensed plumber by Alabama state law. He received $340 for purchasing materials for the job and to fix the plumbing issue. Terrence did not finish the repair, and after causing extensive damage to the residents, he didn't return to finish the job or provide any materials. This wasn't the first time he was arrested for a home repair fraud. In 2018, he was convicted in Lauderdale County for the same thing. A 31-year-old man has been convicted on multiple charges after beating and assaulting a 60-year-old woman and putting a body inside a plastic storage container, which the victim survived. On Tuesday, the 31st of October 2023, Delante Edmund Geiger pleaded guilty to charges of felony assault, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and having weapons under disability. In early May 2023, Delante picked up the victim and drove her to his house at 3177 West 97th Street in Cleveland, Ohio. When they got to his residence, he physically assaulted her, stabbed her in the arm, zip-tied her hands and tortured her. At around 3:30 p.m. on the 2nd of May, authorities responded to Delante's home to conduct a welfare check after they were tipped off by a concerned woman at a nearby corner store, stating that Delante showed her photos of a woman tied up in the basement. Responding officers encountered Delante at his residence. After a 30-minute delay, he allowed officers to search his basement, where they only found an air mattress but no victim. It was during this initial visit that Delante moved the victim from room to room to prevent police from finding her, and the officers left the premises. Later that evening, police spoke with a woman familiar with the area who claimed that she knew that Delante had assaulted a woman and was holding her captive in the basement of his residence. She told police that Delante even showed her photos of the assault and claimed the victim was a snitch, providing investigators with additional evidence of potential criminal activity. In the early hours of the 3rd of May, police returned to the residence and spoke to Delante again. While inside the living room, officers heard moaning sounds from an unknown location. Each time the moaning occurred, Delante amplified the volume of the radio playing on his phone. Suspicions grew, prompting officers to question Delante further. Eventually, Delante confessed that a woman was beneath the porch. Officers found the victim stuffed and folded into a tiny 3-foot by 3-foot plastic container. Her body was motionless with the lid sealed, but she was still alive. She was transported to a hospital with severe injuries, including multiple fractures to the back of her skull and a broken back and spine which left her paralyzed. She was in a coma for several days following her hospitalization. Cleveland County Prosecutor Mike O'Malley said, "I've seen a lot of truly terrible cases over the years, and this one is one of the most horrific I've seen. Delante will be sentenced on the 29th of November, and he faces up to 25 years in prison. 26-year-old Cameron Kearney is behind bars for assaulting his disabled roommate. The victim is a 36-year-old roommate who's autistic and receives monthly disability payments, who lived with Cameron for about a year. On the 27th of October, authorities responded to an apartment at 208 Victor Street in San Antonio, Texas to arrest Cameron after the woman was hospitalized with severe injuries. The incident occurred 2 days prior when a caretaker was bathing the victim, and Cameron became upset because the victim urinated on herself and he felt like she needed to be punished. Cameron then poured jugs full of scalding hot water over the victim while she was still in the shower, causing severe burns. He then forced the woman to stand in the corner until her legs were swollen and poured rubbing alcohol on her and set her on fire with a match, burning her arms. The fire was somehow put out and the victim fell to the floor, so Cameron poured alcohol on the woman's legs and set her on fire again. She suffered severe burns to her neck, back, arms and legs. Cameron's charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and injury to a disabled person causing serious bodily injury. He's held at the Bexar County Jail on a $250,000 bond. Cameron has a criminal history and has previously faced 4 other assault charges, including assault on a public servant dating back to 2017. The investigation into the matter continues. 34-year-old Tevis Walker is behind bars for fatally shooting 15-year-old Janiyah Carr. At 11:50 a.m. on Wednesday the 1st of November, a woman walking a dog found a deceased teenage girl in a wooded area behind the Carriage House East Apartments in Indianapolis, Indiana. The woman contacted police, who responded to the scene. Officials said that the victim, who was later identified as 15-year-old Janiyah Carr, had a bullet wound to her right cheek and trauma to the back of her head. Authorities said that she lived at the apartment complex with her mother and was listed as a runaway on the morning of the 30th of October, as she previously left the home for short periods of time before. Investigators used surveillance video from the Carriage House East Apartments to piece together a timeline of events. At 4:32 a.m. on the 28th of October, cameras showed Janiyah walking up to a black 2018 Kia Optima, registered to Tevis. She then talks to the driver, gets into the passenger seat before the car drives away. At 5:21 a.m, another camera shows the Kia drive into the grass area behind the building and turn off its lights in a spot where Janiyah's body was later found. After the lights of the vehicle go off, movement can be seen, but the view is not clear. Video then shows the suspect walk from the car to the dumpster twice, and then appears to put something in the car's trunk. At 5:25 a.m, the suspect parked the Kia in the parking lot, then walked to his apartment just a few hundred feet from the scene. Authorities said that Tevis had recently been hired as a maintenance man for the apartment complex where he lived, despite having outstanding arrest warrants in Alabama for narcotics and a handgun offense, as well as an unknown warrant out of Georgia. On the evening on Thursday, the 2nd of November, officers stopped Tevis near 86th Street and Chadlin Avenue, and he was taken into custody. During an interview with detectives, Tevis confirmed that the Kia Optima was his, and he was the only person who operated it. He said he remembered picking up a girl who claimed she recognized him from being around the area, but did not know her name, and drove her several miles east to buy an iPad. Tevis said that the person who was going to sell the iPad never showed up, so he drove her back. Tevis is charged with murder, and is held at the Marion County Jail without bond. The motive of the killing is unclear, as the investigation into the matter continues. A 37-year-old man is behind bars on charges of having sexual relations with an underage victim. At 2:32 p.m. on Friday the 3rd of November 2023, Joseph David Linbury was arrested in the 600 block of Garrick Road in Salisbury, North Carolina. He was charged with statutory rape, taking indecent liberties with a child, and first-degree sex offence with a victim under the age of 13. Joseph is held without bond at the Rowan County Jail. This isn't Joseph's first offence. On the 25th of May 2021, Joseph was charged with 1 count of first-degree statutory sex offence and taking indecent liberties with a child in one case involving a 5-year-old boy, and first-degree statutory sex offence in a second case involving a 9-year-old boy. Bond was set at $250,000. The investigation into the matter continues. 18-year-old Kenzie Vstal is behind bars for attempted murder of a police officer after stabbing the man in the face with a screwdriver. The incident occurred at around 6:15 a.m. on Saturday the 4th of November, when Officer Bramer was unlocking Lindsay Duval Park in Mount Washington, Kentucky as part of his morning shift. Bramer said he saw a teen inside the locked park and told her to come to the cruiser and asked her for her information, but as Bramer was writing down the details, Kenzie took off running down Dwayne Way and then to Emma Court. Bramer chased her down, commanding her to stop. Eventually the teen stopped and put her hands in the air. As Bramer tried to place her in handcuffs, Kenzie spun around with a screwdriver in her hand and struck him in the face. According to police, she stabbed him nearly 3 inches above his left eye. Authorities said that Kenzie was trying to cause serious physical injury and possibly kill Bramer. Medics later responded to the scene and treated Bramer's wound. He was taken to hospital but has since been released and is expected to be okay. Kenzie was booked into the Bullitt County Detention Center and charged with attempted murder. On the morning of the 6th of November, Kenzie appeared in court and entered a not guilty plea, and she's been held on the $500,000 bond. She's scheduled to return to court on the 29th of November. 40-year-old Tero Anderson is behind bars after shooting his 2 stepsons following an altercation. At around 8:25 p.m. on Sunday the 29th of October, authorities responded to a home in the 21,100 block of East 50th Terrace Drive South in Independence, Missouri, and reports of shots fired. When officers arrived, the caller, Tero's wife, said her husband shot her 2 sons. Officers found the victims dead in the kitchen with 4 shell casings near their bodies and 4 more casings in the trash can in the kitchen. The victims were identified as 23-year-old Adonis Knight and 30-year-old Mario Batres. Authorities obtained surveillance footage from inside the home that showed the assaults in the sub-basement and at the door to the garage between Tero and the 2 brothers. Tero could be seen holding the handgun in his left hand, approaching one of the victims holding a knife in the lower living room, while the mother held her son back. The other brother was in the kitchen looking at his phone unarmed. Tero went to the base of the stairs and fired 1 of 2 warning shots into the kitchen ceiling. The mother then escorted her 2 sons out of the house, but both returned because one of them didn't have his car keys, and Tero had entered the kitchen. While back inside the house, the mother tried to keep one of her sons away from Tero. The victim then reached around his mother to try to hit Tero, who stepped back. When the son tried to hit him again, Tero shot him and the victim fell to the floor. Tero then shot the other victim despite the fact that the stepson made no attempt to do anything. While both victims lay face down on the ground, Tero stood over them and stomped on one of the victims and shot both of them repeatedly. Tero remained on the scene while his wife called 911. His 3 biological children, all juveniles, were upstairs at the time of the shooting. In an interview with detectives, Tero claimed self-defense. He said he went to grab a gun in the garage after he was assaulted and went to the kitchen where he shot both victims. Tero said while he was unsure how many times he fired his gun, one victim had a knife and the other victim had a gun. But the video showed that neither victim had a weapon when they were shot, and one son was never armed at any point. Tero was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, voluntary manslaughter and 2 counts of armed criminal action. He's held at the Jackson County Jail on a $250,000 bond. The investigation into the matter continues. A 36-year-old woman has been arrested after she was driving drunk and crashed her car with the children inside. At around 5:50 p.m. on Friday the 3rd of November, authorities responded to Huntington Expressway near Union Avenue in Providence, Rhode Island, on reports of a multiple vehicle collision. Police said a silver Honda was traveling along Huntington Expressway when it struck a Ford Explorer, causing the Explorer to hit a blue Nissan. Police said that Stefan Garcia was drunk behind the wheel of a silver Honda when she caused the 3-car pile-up. Her 2 children, aged 9 and 6 years old, were in the car at the time. Both children were taken to the Hasbro Children's Hospital with minor injuries. No other injuries were reported. Stefan failed several field sobriety tests and she was arrested. She's charged with driving under the influence, 2 counts of driving under the influence with a passenger under 13 years of age, reckless driving and refusal to submit to a chemical test. Police said the incident meant Stefan violated her probation for cruelty to or neglect of a child, and she was subsequently remanded to the adult correctional institutions. The children were taken into the custody of the Department of Children, Youth and Families. The investigation into the matter continues. 22-year-old Clayton Snider has been arrested after a 10-year-old boy spotted the man recording him while he went to the toilet. On the 7th of October, the boy was eating dinner with his family at the Grand Floridian Resort and Spa at Walt Disney World in Lake Buena Vista, Florida, when he excused himself to go to the restroom. When he returned to the table, the boy whispered into his father's ear that a strange man had photographed him over the top of the bathroom stall. The boy and his father returned to the bathroom, where the boy recognised Clayton's black Skechers sneakers and pointed the man out to his father. Clayton was not using the restroom, but was just standing there. He repeatedly denied taking photos of the boy when the father confronted him. The father followed Clayton as he left the restroom, calling to resort staff to stop him. Another member of the boy's family approached the group, asking Clayton to hand over his phone, which had a nylon stitch case, while recording the interaction on her own device. After fiddling with his phone for a few minutes, presumably deleting potentially incriminating evidence, he then handed the device to the woman. When police arrived, the family told them that Clayton was still in the restaurant with his own family. Clayton told police that he knew the family suspected him of photographing their son, but denied that he had done so. Clayton gave permission for an Orange County deputy to open his phone after accessing hidden and deleted photo albums. The deputy found a video of the same boy sitting on the toilet in the bathroom stall, with his pants around his ankles. Clayton's phone died shortly after police viewed the footage, and he denied them permission to unlock his Apple Watch. Clayton was arrested and charged with felony video voyeurism, and he was booked into the Orange County Jail, but has since been released on a $5,000 bond. The investigation into the matter continues.